The Napoleonic Wars, how a boy was born to raise chaos and revolution. Imagine this, a stormy night off the coast of Corsica. A baby is born, small, scrappy, and already scowling at the world. His name, Napoleon Bonaparte. Born on a rebel island, raised under the shadow of revolution, and destined to shake the foundations of Europe. But how does a boy from a backwater island rise to become the emperor of the French? Why did the chaos of the French Revolution become the perfect launchpad for his meteoric ascent? What made him not just a conqueror, but a legend feared by kings and worshipped by soldiers? And how did one man turn the entire continent into his personal chessboard, only to be undone by snow, scandal, and a stubborn little island? This is not just history, this is war, ambition, betrayal, and brilliance, served with a side of cannon fire and croissants. From the blood-soaked streets of Paris to the frozen hell of Ilo, from the grandeur of coronation to the humiliation of exile, we'll uncover the secrets behind the man who declared, "I am the revolution." So buckle up, because this isn't just a story of battles, it's the story of how one man rewrote the fate of Europe, and how Europe eventually wrote him off. In the early 18th century, the Mediterranean island of Corsica was a rugged, mountainous outpost under the rule of the Republic of Genoa. But Genoa was a fading power, and Corsicans, proud, fiercely independent, and tired of foreign rule, had had enough. One day, Corsica essentially said, "Hey Genoa, we're declaring independence. And honestly, it's probably not worth your time to try and stop us." Genoa, exhausted and broke, looked at the rebellious island and shrugged. "You're right, it isn't." But Genoa had one last move. They turned to France and said, "Hey France, want to buy this headache?" France, ever eager to expand its influence, replied, "Sure thing." And just like that, Corsica became French territory, just in time for a baby named Napoleon Bonaparte to be born in 1769. Technically French, but culturally Corsican, Napoleon entered the world with a foot in two nations and a chip on both shoulders. Napoleon was born in Ajaccio, Corsica, to a family of minor nobility. His father, Carlo Bonaparte, quickly cozied up to the new French overlords, adopting powdered wigs and silver-buckled shoes like a man auditioning for Versailles. Napoleon hated it. "Go to your room, Napoleon." "No, you go to your room, Dad." His mother, Laetitia, was the iron fist of the household. She punished him harshly, but Napoleon respected her discipline. She was the backbone of the family, and he adored her. Despite their modest status, the Bonapartes used their noble title to send Napoleon to military school in France. And that's where things got complicated. At school, Napoleon was the odd one out. He had a thick Corsican accent, no money, and a volcanic temper. His classmates mocked him relentlessly. "Your farts smell like cheese. You call eggs uffs like a bunch of dingleberries." Napoleon hated them all. He spent his time alone, devouring books about Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, and dreaming of conquest. He excelled in math and geography, and at just 16 he graduated and became a second lieutenant in the artillery. But ambition burned in his chest. He didn't want to be a junior officer. He wanted power. Napoleon's talent was undeniable, but in pre-revolutionary France, nobility trumped merit. Enter Simeon, a bumbling aristocrat whose resume included a drawing of a gerbil giving birth to a shoe. Yet Simeon got the promotion because his dad was the Marquis de la Fayette. Napoleon? Rejected. He was stuck, until the world turned upside down. In 1789, the French Revolution exploded. The Bastille fell, the king was executed, and the old social order crumbled. For Napoleon, this was a golden opportunity. He didn't care much for the mobs, but he cared about rising through the ranks. He fought for the revolution, crushed a British-backed rebellion in Toulon, and was promoted. He stopped a royalist uprising in Paris and was promoted again. Soon, he had his own army. Napoleon believed marriage could elevate his status. He courted many women, but most found him repulsive. Eventually, he met Josephine de Beauharnais, an older widow with debts and charm. She agreed to marry him, despite finding him physically repellent. Unbeknownst to Napoleon, Josephine had a reputation. Everyone seemed to know her intimately. "Hey Napoleon, I hear you're marrying Josephine. She's a great kisser." "Wait, what do you mean she's a great kisser?" Napoleon was smitten. Josephine? She fell for a man named Hippolyte. While France reveled in revolution, Austria and other monarchies panicked. France had just executed its king. What if their peasants got ideas? France tried diplomacy, Preposterous, I declare war. And so began the War of the First Coalition, France versus basically everyone. In 1796, France planned a three-pronged attack on Vienna. Napoleon was given the southern front, a diversion, but he turned it into the main event. His army was underpaid, under-equipped, and demoralized. But Napoleon gave stirring speeches, promised them riches, and led them into Italy. He was outnumbered, but he split his enemies and defeated them one by one. He knocked Sardinia out of the war, routed the Austrians, and at the Battle of Lodi, he personally aimed the cannons, covered in mud, earning the undying loyalty of his troops. When he ordered a suicidal charge across a bridge, his men obeyed without hesitation. They won. Napoleon believed he was destined for greatness, and now, so did everyone else. As Napoleon swept through northern Italy, the locals cheered, "You've freed us from the Austrians." To which Napoleon replied, "Yes, now enjoy your new French overlords." He plundered cities, sent wealth back to France, and paid his soldiers real money for the first time in years. From a rebellious Corsican boy mocked for his accent to a general adored by his troops, Napoleon had rewritten his destiny. He wasn't just a soldier. He was a symbol of merit over privilege, of ambition over birthright, and he was just getting started. Now pause for a sec. Join the front lines of history and power. Welcome to European Battle, where epic clashes, legendary warriors, and untold stories come alive. By subscribing and turning on notifications, you're not just joining a channel, you're stepping into a world of thrilling battles, strategic brilliance, and jaw-dropping historical drama. From ancient empires to modern warfare, we deliver cinematic storytelling, expert insights, and exclusive content that will leave you breathless. Why subscribe? Unlock premium battle breakdowns and rare historical footage. Be the first to witness new episodes and live events. Join a passionate community of history lovers and strategy minds. Fuel your curiosity with facts, theories, and fierce debates. Don't just watch history, live it. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to never miss a moment of the action. Your front row seat to Europe's greatest battles is just one click away. European Battle, where legends clash. The Pope, spiritual leader of millions and a staunch supporter of the Austrian monarchy, had been quietly backing Napoleon's enemies. So Napoleon, never one to let a slight go unanswered, marched toward Rome, not to destroy but to intimidate. He didn't sack the Vatican, but he made it clear. Support Austria again, and next time I won't be so polite. This show of force sent ripples through Europe. And as Napoleon approached Vienna, the exhausted Austrians, reeling from his victories in Italy, were forced to negotiate peace. Napoleon, just 28 years old, personally oversaw the talks. "You've single-handedly knocked Austria out of the war," his generals whispered. "And you still live in your dad's attic," whispered history to the rest of us. In the Italian territories he conquered, Napoleon didn't just leave a garrison and call it a day. He built governments, he drafted constitutions, established sister republics, and shaped civil institutions, all while still technically a general. Not something a general generally does, said everyone. He was laying the groundwork for a new Europe, one shaped by revolutionary ideals, but also by Napoleon's vision. Back in France, the government was nervous. Napoleon was too popular, too powerful. So they sent him far away, to Egypt, to undermine British access to India and keep him distracted. Napoleon, ever hungry for glory, took a team of scholars with him. He marveled at ancient wonders. Whoa, it's a freaky man-cat, the Sphinx. Whoa, it's a big stick, obelisks. Whoa, it's an ugly horse, camels. Whoa, it's a stumpy little manlet, a local general. Hey, I'm average height for the time. But then came Admiral Nelson, Britain's naval juggernaut. At the Battle of the Nile, Nelson obliterated Napoleon's fleet, stranding him in Egypt. Then an Anglo-Ottoman force defeated him at Acre, crushing his campaign. So Napoleon did what any self-respecting general would do. He abandoned his army and sailed back to France. Napoleon's Egyptian campaign was a disaster, but he was a master of spin. He published newspapers, commissioned paintings, and exaggerated his achievements. I discovered ancient secrets, defeated armies, and rode majestic stallions. Reality. He rode a depressed mule and got wrecked. Still, when he returned to Paris, he was hailed as a hero. But trouble awaited him at home. Napoleon discovered that Josephine, his beloved wife, had been cheating on him. Really, Josephine? This guy? I'm just as tall as him. Josephine begged for forgiveness. "Now that you're famous, I swear I'll never do it again." Napoleon forgave her, sort of. He had his own affairs, often with women he met under the guise of consulting generals. "I'll be in this room consulting my generals for 30 minutes. Translation: boinking a mistress for 2 seconds. France's government was a mess, unpopular, ineffective, and ripe for overthrow. A powerful politician approached Napoleon. "Let's stage a coup." Napoleon agreed. The plan? Trap the government and convince them to voluntarily give up power. "Quick, there's a Jacobin plot to overthrow you. Better get inside this cage." The cage was an isolated palace outside Paris, surrounded by Napoleon's army. Inside, chaos reigned. No one knew what was happening. Napoleon fumbled, his men hesitated, but then his brother Lucien, president of the lower house, stepped in. He intimidated the council, and they created a new constitution. 3 consuls were named, but after some rewriting, only one truly mattered: Napoleon, the first consul. He was now effectively dictator of France at just 30 years old. So maybe it's time you washed your disgusting bedsheets. While Napoleon was off in Egypt, France had been spreading revolutionary ideals like Oprah. You get a republic, you get a constitution, you get liberty. But the monarchies of Europe weren't amused. They formed the Second Coalition, now with Russia joining the fray. France got blasted, but then Russia stalled in Switzerland and pulled out. Now that Napoleon was in charge, he was ready to blast back. Napoleon took command of the Army of the Reserve. Everyone thought he'd attack through Germany. Instead, he crossed the Alps, a legendary maneuver. You've seen the painting. Napoleon on a rearing stallion, cape flying. Reality, he rode a mule, soaked in mud. But the move worked. He surprised the Austrians, cut off their supply lines, and forced them into battle at Marengo. At first, the Austrians crushed the French, but then Napoleon returned with reinforcements and crushed them back. After General Moreau's victory at Hohenlinden, Vienna was exposed. Austria sued for peace. Again, the Second Coalition collapsed. Only Britain remained at war. Britain, using its navy, blockaded French ports and seized neutral cargo. Neutral countries got angry and formed a league to embargo Britain. Britain responded by bombing Copenhagen. The league disbanded. Britain's economy was hurting, so they signed a peace treaty in 1802. For the first time in years, Europe was at peace. Napoleon had turned a losing war into a French victory. But could he govern? Spoiler, yes. He created a national bank, reformed currency and taxation, built a centralized legal code, the Napoleonic Code, improved education based on merit, cleaned up corruption and infrastructure. But not all was progressive. He rolled back women's rights, giving husbands full legal control. Still, Napoleon was building stability after years of chaos. He wasn't just riding the wave of revolution, he was shaping it. The French Revolution had done a number on religion. The Catholic Church, once a pillar of French society, had been kicked to the curb. Churches were desecrated, priests exiled, and faith replaced with reason and chaos. But Napoleon, ever the pragmatist, saw the problem. Most French citizens still considered themselves Catholic. Alienating them wasn't just bad politics, it was dangerous. So he struck a deal with the Pope. The Concordat of 1801 restored the Church's presence in France, but with tight restrictions. The Church could operate, but Napoleon controlled its purse strings. Bishops were appointed by the state. Religious freedom was guaranteed for Jews and Protestants, a radical move in an age of widespread anti-Semitism. But don't mistake this for altruism. Napoleon believed religion was a tool, a way to keep the poor from eating the rich. Let them pray instead of revolt, he might as well have said. His goal was clear: end the chaos of the revolution and build a stable, prosperous republic. And in that, he largely succeeded. With reforms rolling out, banks, schools, laws, roads, Napoleon declared, "The revolution is over. I am the revolution." His head, figuratively, could be seen for miles. But not everyone was thrilled. Conservatives thought he was too radical. Radicals thought he was too conservative. But Napoleon was now a dictator, and opposition was met with iron-fisted suppression. Newspapers were censored. Dissenters were arrested. Political rivals were exiled or silenced. France was no longer a democracy. It was Napoleon's playground. In 1804, several assassination attempts were made on Napoleon's life. Royalists wanted him gone. Foreign agents plotted in the shadows. Napoleon survived, but he got the message. If I die, France falls into chaos. I need to secure my legacy. Being first consul for life wasn't enough. He wanted a dynasty, so he proposed becoming emperor. He held a vote. The results? 99.9% in favor. Definitely not rigged. On December 2nd, 1804, in the Grand Cathedral of Notre Dame, Napoleon staged a coronation so lavish it made Versailles blush. The Pope was invited. Traditionally, the Pope would crown the emperor, but Napoleon had other plans. He lifted the crown himself and placed it on his own head. This isn't Charlemagne's empire. This is mine. It was a symbolic mic drop. Napoleon was now emperor of the French, not by divine right, but by sheer force of will. Even before the coronation, Britain had redeclared war. Both sides had violated their peace treaty, and tensions boiled over. Napoleon responded by occupying Hanover and planning a massive invasion of Britain. To fund it, he sold a huge chunk of land to the United States, the Louisiana Purchase. He gathered his army along the English Channel, ready to strike. But there was a problem. Britannia ruled the waves. Napoleon's army was unmatched on land, but his navy was no match for Britain's. So the invasion stalled. The two powers would rarely engage directly during the Napoleonic Wars. Britain had another weapon: money. They threw gold at anyone willing to fight Napoleon. Soon, Austria, Russia, Naples, and Sweden joined forces to form the Third Coalition. They thought they had him cornered. They were wrong. Napoleon had reorganized his army into corps, self-contained units with their own infantry, cavalry, and artillery. This allowed them to move independently, live off the land, travel fast without supply trains. Napoleon's forces could traverse massive distances, outmaneuver enemies, and strike before they even knew he was coming. It was lightning warfare, a precursor to blitzkrieg. The Third Coalition had a plan. Russia and Austria would unite their forces and crush Napoleon together. A classic pincer move, but Napoleon, stationed far away in Bouillon, had other ideas. They want to meet up? Let's make sure they never do. In a matter of weeks, Napoleon marched 200,000 men in secret across Europe. His destination? Ulm, where Austrian General Mack was waiting. Napoleon encircled Mack like a python in fog. The Austrians didn't even realize they were surrounded until it was too late. Mack's entire army was captured without a major battle. "I have destroyed the Austrian army by simply marching," Napoleon later bragged. It was a devastating blow. The coalition's plan was shattered before it began. With Austria humiliated, Napoleon turned to face the Russians, led by Tsar Alexander IV, young, ambitious, and hungry for glory. But the Russians had a clever plan. When the French approach, we run away. Napoleon gave chase, but this was risky. His strategy relied on quick victories. A prolonged war meant more countries might join the coalition, so Napoleon decided to play mind games. He sent Alexander a message: "Hello, I'm just a little baby boy, and I'm very scared." Alexander took the bait. "Boris, get my crossbow. We're going hunting." Napoleon set up camp at Austerlitz, pretending to be weak and retreating. He even evacuated the high ground, making his position look vulnerable. A thick fog rolled in, obscuring the battlefield. The Allies saw Napoleon's right flank looking exposed and descended from the heights to attack. But it was all a trap. From the fog, a massive French force emerged, launching a central assault that split the Allied army in two. As the Allies fled across frozen lakes, Napoleon ordered his artillery to fire on the ice, causing many to drown. But he said he was a baby boy. "He tricked you, sir. You were the baby boy all along." It was Napoleon's masterpiece. Austria was forced to make peace again, and the Third Coalition collapsed. Napoleon didn't just win battles, he won minds. His genius at Austerlitz wasn't brute force. It was mental agility, tactical foresight, and lightning-fast decision-making. And if you're the kind of viewer who appreciates that kind of brilliance, we've got something you'll love. Introducing Brain Games and Puzzles, a curated collection of cognitive challenges designed to stimulate your brain, sharpen your memory, and boost mental clarity. It's a set of engaging puzzles, logic games, and brain teasers available in print or digital formats that are scientifically designed to improve focus and attention, enhance short-term and long-term memory, strengthen problem-solving skills, support mental agility as you age. Just like physical exercise strengthens your body, mental workouts strengthen your brain. These puzzles activate key areas of your brain responsible for executive function, planning, decision-making, neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to adapt and grow, stress reduction. Yes, solving puzzles can be calming. If you're 45, 55, or 65 and still love learning, strategy, and staying sharp, this is your battlefield for the brain. Whether you're retired, working, or just love a good challenge, these games help you stay mentally fit, and they're fun. Because let's be honest, if Napoleon could outwit Europe, you can definitely outwit a Sudoku. You'll find the link to Brain Games and Puzzles in my bio below. It's available on Amazon, and yes, we do earn a small commission from every purchase made through our link. That helps us keep creating more epic content for you, so thank you for supporting the channel. Don't forget to subscribe, click the notification bell, and follow us for more stories that challenge your mind and stir your soul. Because history isn't just about the past, it's about how we think, how we learn, and how we conquer our own battles. With Naples conquered in 1806, Napoleon was on a roll. He punished Austria with a harsh peace treaty. Territory lost, heavy compensation, a promise to never fight Napoleon again. Napoleon began restructuring Europe. He handed out territories to family and friends, created the Confederation of the Rhine in Germany, declared himself protector of the Confederation. This was a direct blow to the Holy Roman Empire, which had existed for over 1,000 years. Emperor Francis II saw the writing on the wall and dissolved the empire, one of the oldest political entities in Europe, gone. Napoleon still dreamed of invading Britain. Spain had allied with France, and together they built a massive fleet. But then came Admiral Nelson. At Trafalgar, Nelson didn't follow the usual naval tactics. Instead of lining up parallel to the enemy, he punched through the Franco-Spanish line, splitting them apart. It was chaos. It was brilliant. Nelson won the battle but died in the fight, becoming a British legend. Napoleon's hopes of invading Britain were dead in the water. With Napoleon's influence spreading, Prussia felt threatened. The Prussian king, Frederick William III, was pressured by his wife. "He took Hanover, he's in our turf, declare war." What is it with you and war? What is it with you and being a cupcake? So Prussia declared war in October 1806, joining the Fourth Coalition. But Frederick wasn't exactly a military genius. "This time we stick together. No solo missions." Hey, where'd Fred go? Without consulting allies, Prussia sent Napoleon an ultimatum to leave Germany. Napoleon responded with force. Prussia's army was outdated, relying on old tactics. At the Battle of Jena, Napoleon crushed them. At Auerstedt, Marshal Davout, with a smaller force, defeated a larger Prussian army. Napoleon pursued the fleeing Prussians, took Berlin, and decimated their forces in just 1 month. Frederick William fled east, but winter was coming. Napoleon expected both sides to pause for the season. Russia had other plans. The Russians launched a surprise winter offensive. At Eylau, the battle was fought in a blizzard. Men froze to death. Artillery fire turned the snow red. Napoleon himself was nearly captured. The French were saved by a legendary cavalry charge led by Joachim Murat, Napoleon's flamboyant commander. Picture Murat, gold-trimmed uniform, flowing hair, charging through snow like a mythic hero. After the carnage, both sides agreed to pause until spring. When fighting resumed, the Russians were pushed back to Friedland. General Bennigsen made a fatal mistake. He positioned his army with the Ala River at their back. Napoleon's artillery pinned them, and many Russians drowned trying to escape. It was a decisive victory. The War of the Fourth Coalition was over. Napoleon had once again crushed Austria, humiliated Prussia, outmaneuvered Russia. He was now master of continental Europe. But the story doesn't end here. Because while Napoleon was building empires and rewriting maps, a new storm was brewing, one that would eventually lead to his downfall. So if you're ready to dive into a world of rebel islands, reluctant empires, and relentless ambition, then you're in the right place. But before we charge into battle with Napoleon, do us and yourself a favor. Hit that subscribe button, smash the notification bell, drop a comment if you think you could have outwitted Napoleon. We won't judge. And follow us for more epic tales that turn dusty history into cinematic legend. Because trust us, this is just the beginning. The cannonballs haven't even started flying yet.